Harry Potter in a horror movie? Sign me up, bitch. Let's do it. The Woman in Black opens up with this crazy cold open where these three little girls are playing in their room, minding their own fucking business when they notice this dark figure in there. And they proceed to, in tandem, jump out of a window to their deaths. So that happens in 1889, and then we jump to the early 1900s where we meet a lawyer named Arthur Kipp. He has a son named Joseph who is now 4 years old, and we learn that his wife Stella died in childbirth. One day, Arthur gets this assignment from work that requires him to travel to the Eel Marsh house. Now, this is like this huge mansion estate, and the owner, Alice Drablow, recently passed away. So Arthur has to go there to get things in order and get any documents that she left behind before the house is able to be sold. So Arthur gets to this town and everybody is just really cold and standoffish, especially this man, Mr. Jerome. But he does meet this landowner named Samuel Daly, who is the only person that is like welcoming and nice to him. So Arthur is brought to the estate and he goes in by himself and just immediately things are not right. Arthur hears weird noises, there are toys that move on their own, and eventually he straight up sees this figure of a woman in black in the house. So Arthur tries to tell the village constable about all the weird shit that's happening, and he's just like, no, you're crazy, everything's fine. And while he's literally in the constable's office reporting this weird shit, these three children come in and say, my sister ingested lye, she's dying. She collapses into Arthur's arms as he tries to call for help, and it's too late, she dies. So now the townspeople are even more standoffish towards him because for some reason they blame him for this. That night, Arthur is invited to Sam Daly's house for dinner, and he meets his wife Elizabeth, and they reveal that they actually had a son who drowned years prior. And we see that since the death of her son, Elizabeth has kind of lost her marbles, like she's not all there anymore. A little bit later on, Arthur comes across Mr. Jerome's young daughter, and upon seeing him, she immediately starts freaking out and yelling at him that he's the reason that Victoria, that other little girl, is dead. And he also comes across Victoria's father, who is in mourning, and tells him it's your fault because you saw that woman. So Arthur has no fucking idea what's going on, and he starts doing a little more digging. And back at the house, he discovers letters back and forth between Alice, the owner who passed away, and her sister. And we learn that Alice adopted her sister's son Nathaniel after her sister was declared mentally unfit to be his mother. But in reality, she was just an unwed mother, and this is like the late 1800s, early 1900s. Arthur also finds a death certificate showing that Nathaniel, the little boy, drowned. And he found letters from Alice's sister blaming Alice for it because she saved herself from drowning but not Nathaniel. And then he also finds a death certificate for Alice's sister showing that she hanged herself after the grief of losing her son. And where did she hang herself? In the fucking nursery, which previously had been bolted shut. So Arthur now goes to the nursery to find that it is fully unlocked and opened. So it's a dark, rainy night, and Arthur goes in the nursery and looks out the window into the marsh, and he sees the apparitions of all these dead children in the marsh. He sees a boy straight up crawling out of the mud, he sees little Victoria, and he sees a reflection of the woman in black in the window. And he also sees an apparition of a woman hanging herself. The next day, Arthur goes into town to find that Mr. Jerome's house is on fire. Arthur, being the hero he is, tries to go into the house to save Jerome's daughter, who had previously accused him of being responsible for killing Victoria. But when he gets inside, he finds the woman in black convincing Jerome's daughter to burn herself to death, which she does. So Arthur goes back to the Dalys, where he is told by Elizabeth that the woman in black is Jeanette, Alice's sister, who hanged herself. And she claims the children of the village by convincing them to off themselves. And she does this like out of revenge for her own son being taken from her. And it's at this point that Arthur has this realization because his son is supposed to be coming with his nanny to visit him that night, and Arthur understands that his son is going to be next. So it's at this point that Arthur has this idea and he gets Mr. Daly to help him because he discovers that Nathaniel's body after he drowned was never recovered from the marsh. So he has this idea, if we find the body and bring it back to the woman in black, this might end the curse. So Arthur jumps into the marsh and damn near drowns, but he is able to recover Nathaniel's body. And he and Sam bury Nathaniel with the woman in black. But as they're doing this, they hear her voice echoing, saying that she will never forgive for the wrongs that she has endured. So everything seems to go back to normal, all is well, and Arthur ends up going to the train station to greet Joseph and the nanny. But as Arthur is distracted talking to somebody else, we see the woman in black on the train tracks. And she lures little Joseph onto the tracks as a train is coming. Arthur immediately jumps onto the train tracks and grabs his son as everybody watches on. In the next scene, we see Arthur holding his son looking up like they survived. But when they look up, everybody's gone. And everybody else who's there, including their nanny and Mr. Daly, sees that the train hit them and they died. And And Sam also sees the spirits of all of the other children that were claimed with the woman in black standing with her on the train tracks. So we now cut back to Arthur and Joseph, and we now know that they're in the afterlife. And Joseph looks up and says to his father, "Daddy, who is that woman?" And we assume it's going to be the woman in black. But when they look up, it's Stella, Arthur's wife and Joseph's mother, who he never met because she died in childbirth. And Arthur, holding Joseph, goes to her, they reunite and hold hands, and they walk off, and the movie ends. So it's like a not happy but happy ending.